Aegyo for a sip of water, or a glimpse of something deeper. Why fans are asking if this Jimin and Jungkook moment was never meant to be just a joke. What if the smallest gesture reveals the biggest truth? What if a single word, whispered shyly, exposes a routine so intimate it was never supposed to escape into the public eye? And what if a simple request for a sip of water, not champagne, not wine, not celebration, quietly reignited one of the most emotional conversations in modern pop culture on a quiet December night when nothing important was supposed to happen? A 1-minute clip did what award shows, red carpets, and official promotions could not. It stopped the global fandom in its tracks. And now the question echoing across timelines is unavoidable. Was this really just playful teasing, or did fans witness an unfiltered fragment of Jimin and Jungkook's everyday reality? The moment arrived without warning, without dramatic music, without polished lighting.
No choreography, no script.
Just two people, a bottle of water, and a pause that felt far too natural to be accidental. In the video that first surfaced through a fan account on X, formerly Twitter, the camera captures Jimin casually sipping water inside a car late at night. The atmosphere is relaxed, almost domestic. Then comes a voice from beside him. Jungkook asks for water. Simple, ordinary, human, and yet Jimin doesn't hand it over. Instead, he smiles. He teases. He tilts the bottle just enough to make the request linger in the air. Say please, he insists, but not just any please. He wants Aegyo, the kind Jungkook has spent years insisting he outgrew. The kind he publicly rejects with mock indignation. The kind fans know he avoids unless someone truly matters. Jungkook protests. He laughs. He reminds Jimin, and perhaps himself, that he's 27 years old, too old for this, too mature, too aware of the camera. But Jimin doesn't back down. He gently shakes the bottle, the sound of water sloshing like a countdown. And then something changes. There's a pause.
A breath.
A surrender. Jungkook looks away, embarrassed, then softly delivers the Aegyo, please anyway. It's quiet, reluctant, undeniably real. Jimin bursts into laughter, delighted, victorious, affectionate in a way that feels instinctive rather than performative. The water is handed over. The moment should end there, but it doesn't, because ARMY didn't just see teasing. They saw timing. They saw comfort. They saw the ease of two people who know exactly how far they can push each other, and exactly when the other will give in. And suddenly, fans weren't asking why Jungkook did Aegyo. They were asking why he did it so easily for Jimin. Within hours, the clip exploded across platforms, surpassing tens of thousands of likes and reposts. Comments flooded in, many laughing, many emotional, many unsettled in the best possible way. Words like sibling-coded appeared again and again, but so did phrases like "this feels too real," "this is their everyday," and "we weren't supposed to see this." And that's where the narrative shifted, because jokes don't usually leave people feeling exposed. The subtitles in the clip added another layer of irony. Drinking water instead of wine. On the surface, it's humorous, a playful nod to adulthood, to maturity, to restraint. But beneath that humor lies a quiet symbolism fans couldn't ignore. These are men fully old enough to drink, celebrate, indulge. And yet here they are, sharing water in the dark, teasing like kids, laughing like nothing else exists. Is that not intimacy in its purest form? What made the moment resonate wasn't the Aegyo itself. Fans have seen Aegyo before. What unsettled and delighted them was the dynamic. Jimin's confidence in pushing Jungkook's boundaries. Jungkook's automatic compliance despite his embarrassment. The way neither seemed surprised by the exchange, as if it had happened countless times before, just without an audience. And that's where the suspicion began to grow. Many fans began asking whether this was a habit, a ritual, a daily rhythm that simply slipped through the cracks of privacy. Was this how they behave when no cameras are rolling? Was this how they ask each other for favors? Was this how they unwind after long days, after military schedules, after years of public pressure? And if so, how much of their bond has remained invisible to the world by design? This wasn't filmed for a variety show. It wasn't edited for laughs. It wasn't framed with comedic timing. It was raw, slightly awkward, unpolished. And that rawness is what made it powerful. The clip is believed to originate from a casual live session, possibly on Weverse, or from a relaxed moment following their activities together. And that detail matters, because Weverse lives are not performances in the traditional sense. They're spaces where idols let their guards down, where fans expect honesty rather than spectacle. And in that honesty, boundaries blur. Jimin's role in the moment is especially telling. He isn't loud. He isn't exaggerated. His teasing is gentle, precise, knowing. He understands Jungkook's resistance, and he also understands exactly how to overcome it. That kind of knowledge doesn't come from rehearsals. It comes from proximity, from repetition, from shared time that extends beyond professional obligations. Jungkook's reaction, too, deserves scrutiny. He doesn't walk away. He doesn't refuse outright. He doesn't turn the moment into a joke for the camera. He hesitates, yes, but then he yields, not with bravado, but with shyness. And that shyness feels unguarded. It feels like the reaction of someone who knows the person teasing him will never judge him. For longtime fans, this dynamic feels familiar. Not because they've seen it often, but because they've felt it in fragments over the years. A glance held too long. A laugh that arrives too quickly. A comfort that doesn't need explanation. And now, in a 1-minute clip about water, all of those fragments seem to converge. The timing of the moment adds yet another layer. BTS remains in a period of hiatus, with members navigating military service and solo paths. Fans have been starved not just of content, but of connection, proof that the bond hasn't weakened, that distance hasn't diluted what made them who they are. And suddenly, without warning, here comes a reminder that feels more convincing than any statement or press release. This is not chemistry manufactured by a camera. This is chemistry that exists whether the camera is there or not. The reference to their travel series, Are You Sure?, inevitably resurfaced in fan discussions, as viewers recalled similar moments of bickering, teasing, and quiet affection that define the show's appeal. But even then, those moments were framed within a production. This clip wasn't. And that distinction matters more than anything. As the clip continued to circulate, international media began to pick it up, framing it as a cute interaction, a healing moment, a reminder of BTS's enduring charm. But fans knew better. They sensed the subtext. They read between the smiles. And they asked the question that no headline dared to ask outright. If this is what slips through accidentally, what does their private world actually look like? Why did Jimin feel so comfortable teasing Jungkook like that? Why did Jungkook comply so quickly? Why did neither of them seem aware of how intimate the exchange appeared? And why did it leave so many viewers feeling emotional rather than merely amused? The answer may lie in the years they've spent growing up together, evolving not just as artists but as people. Shared dorms, shared stages, shared silence. Bonds forged under pressure don't always announce themselves loudly. Sometimes, they reveal themselves in the smallest acts, like withholding water just long enough to hear a familiar voice soften. This is why fans can't let it go, because the moment refuses to be categorized. It's too sincere for fan service, too gentle for comedy, too revealing for coincidence. And in that ambiguity lies its power. In the end, perhaps the most important detail is what wasn't said. Neither Jimin nor Jungkook addressed the clip afterward. There was no clarification.
No explanation.
No attempt to reframe it as a joke. They let it exist as it was, unedited, uncontextualized, alive. And maybe that silence is the loudest confirmation of all, because when something is truly ordinary, you don't feel the need to explain it as, oh, was it just Aegyo for a sip of water? Or was it a quiet glimpse into a bond so natural that it forgot the world was watching? Fans may never get a definitive answer, but perhaps that's the point. Sometimes, the truth doesn't arrive as a statement. Sometimes, it arrives as a whisper, a smile, and a soft, embarrassed please. And yet, the questions refuse to fade. As the clip continued to circulate, something unusual happened within the fandom. The laughter came first, naturally. The memes, the edits, the playful captions followed. But after the initial wave of humor subsided, a quieter reaction emerged, one that lingered longer, cut deeper, and felt strangely personal. Fans weren't just rewatching the moment to smile. They were rewatching it to analyze silence, eye contact, timing, body language. They slowed it down, replayed it frame by frame, asking themselves why it felt different from every other cute BTS moment they had seen before. Why did it feel unscripted in a way that bordered on intimate? In K-pop, fans are trained to recognize performance. They know when idols exaggerate reactions, when Aegyo is played up for laughs, when teasing is amplified for entertainment value. But this moment resisted those familiar patterns. There was no punchline, no exaggerated reaction for the camera, no awareness of how viral it might become. It unfolded with the casual inevitability of a habit, the kind that forms when two people share space long enough to stop explaining themselves. That's why many ARMY began using the same phrase over and over again. This feels like something we weren't supposed to see. The teasing didn't feel like fan service. It felt like muscle memory. Jimin didn't pause to gauge reactions. Jungkook didn't play to the audience. Their exchange moved forward naturally, as if the camera were invisible, as if the world beyond the car didn't exist. And in that small, enclosed space, the power dynamic was clear, not hierarchical, not performative, but deeply familiar. Jimin knew Jungkook would give in. That certainty is what unsettled people the most, because certainty like that doesn't come from guessing. It comes from repetition, from shared routines so consistent they become predictable. And fans began asking themselves uncomfortable questions. How many times has this happened before? How many moments like this exist beyond the reach of cameras, beyond edited content, beyond what the industry allows them to see? The water itself became symbolic. Not wine, not soda, not something celebratory. Just water. Basic. Necessary. Almost domestic. The kind of thing you share without thinking, unless you're teasing someone you know won't truly refuse you. And that detail stuck with fans. Why did Jimin feel comfortable with holding something so basic? Why did Jungkook react not with irritation, but with resignation and shy compliance? It didn't feel like a joke between coworkers. It felt like a rhythm between people who share a private language. As discussions deepened, many fans began revisiting past footage with new eyes. Old clips resurfaced. Moments that once seemed insignificant now felt loaded with context. A glance held half a second longer. A smile that appeared too quickly. A hand reaching out instinctively. Suddenly, this 1-minute clip reframed years of interactions. Not dramatically, not scandalously, but subtly, like a missing puzzle piece quietly sliding into place. And yet, what made the moment even more powerful was how ordinary it was. There was no confession.
No dramatic reveal.
No emotional speech. Just thirst, teasing, embarrassment, laughter. And maybe that's why it resonated so deeply. Because intimacy rarely announces itself. It shows up in habits, in comfort, in knowing exactly how far you can push someone without pushing them away. Fans also couldn't ignore the timing. After a period marked by separation, military duties, and limited group interactions, this clip felt like reassurance disguised as humor. A reminder that whatever distance exists physically has not disrupted the internal dynamics that define their bond. The ease was still there. The familiarity was still there. The unspoken understanding was still intact, and that realization carried emotional weight. For many ARMY, BTS has never just been about music. It has been about connection between members and between the group and the people who support them. Seeing that connection remain untouched, even in the smallest moments, felt grounding, healing as many described it, but also slightly bittersweet, because it raised another question: how much of their real life do fans only ever see by accident? The clip's virality wasn't driven by shock or controversy. It spread because it felt honest, because it felt like a crack in the wall between public image and private reality. And those cracks, however small, are irresistible. As the days passed, media outlets continued to frame the moment as lighthearted fun.
Cute.
Adorable. Sibling-like. And while those descriptions weren't wrong, they felt incomplete. Fans weren't reacting because it was funny. They were reacting because it felt true. There is a difference. Truth has texture.